This right here is a Trackmania pathfinding map. It has 20 checkpoints scattered around the map and a finish and a start in the middle. It has no designated path by the mapper, and the goal as a player is to find the best path you can and set the best time with it. The track was used in the Trackmania games, which is sort of like a Trackmania Olympics. Here's the format. You have 1 week to drive the best time on one map with 20 checkpoints scattered. Everyone's time's a secret until at the end of the week, they're revealed. So I took it upon myself to try to solve this beast of a track and find the best route. What I figured out, and having worked on projects like this before, is that the best way to solve a track like this is to use the traveling salesman problem. This is a famous mathematical problem where a salesman travels from city to city, and you want to find out the most efficient route to do so. We label the checkpoints alphabetically from A to T, and having X and Ö as the finish and start. The foolproof way to solve this is to drive every sector. You drive from J to K, then you drive from J to E, then you drive from J to O, and you do this for every single checkpoint. Every single one, you can grab 19 other ones. You get a number that is in the million. A 20 factorial should be correct. It is in the billions and billions, all right? But of course, that's not fully accurate because you don't need to drive from T to C. Like, that is very redundant. So you really only count the useful options. Like, checkpoint I only should go to H or C. It is very hard to imagine that the perfect solution doesn't do either of these things. So in actuality, we drove about 600 and we timed each one. What you're looking at is a bit overwhelming in terms of numbers, but you can read it as this is the time it takes from checkpoint A to B, from checkpoint A to C, and so on. And we did this for the entire combination set possible within reasonability, you know? And then you get another problem, which is that after timing each one, now you have to think about the fact that you're driving each sector idealistically, meaning that you assume perfect speed. So let's say very simply that you drive from A to D. Well, you're gonna assume you have the maximum possible speed as you drive from A and you just rush to checkpoint D. But now if you had a sector that is from D to C, it's gonna assume you can turn around at D at 300 speed. Like, you just go full speed this way immediately as you touch the checkpoint. So after you have every segment, what you have to do is add penalties. So you say that for certain segments, you have to add a time penalty to make them more accurate. So we did some extra calculations on that. After about 3 days of driving checkpoint combinations, we finally had all the data, and now it was time to calculate. I've never calculated anything like this, and I was a bit scared of getting it wrong, and neither had anyone in Team Norway, so we were a bit stumped at where to go next. I sent a couple of messages to friends on Discord, and one of them said that he could do it, but he was writing a program with ChatGPT as an assistant, and I was a bit skeptical that it would actually turn out the best route. I mean, sometimes these things hallucinate. I didn't really have much faith in it, but decided to give it a shot anyway, since we didn't really have any other options. And what do you know? The program gave us 15 routes and listed them based on their time, with the fastest one being a 1:36. And now, the next part of the process was to manually test each and every one of these routes and try to max them out and see if they were 1, drivable with fast pace, and 2, even realistic. Most of the routes that we found had this MHIC combination, which seemed to be important for any run that was gonna have pace at all. However, the interesting thing with Route 6 was that it started out in the other direction. It went to K first, and later came down and picked up MHIC. And this combination is really difficult to drive, but it was extremely fast. The program suggested that Route 6 would be fastest driven with KJ, F, E, G in that order. However, after testing, I discovered that K, E, J, F, G was a lot faster. And after trying just a little bit, I thought this route was already quite optimal. So I decided to drive it and see how far I could get on the leaderboards with it. So this is my best run with Route 6. We go through checkpoint K in the start, jump up and go straight to E. No airtime, do a drift here, bit of optimizations. Try to get no airtime up the hill again towards J. And then we go down to F and G. And you do a nice little wood flick into drift around the corner, keep all the speed. Pick up checkpoint G, one of the most isolated checkpoints on the map. And one you have to plan your route carefully around. We drop down from A And now we go on to the outer circle of the map. There are a lot of checkpoints here that are sort of a forced string. This is checkpoint O, and then N, S, T. A lot of the best routes have this. And it really seems like there isn't much better way to do this because you cannot go the other way around or you get stuck. Now we pick up P with a turnaround, and then a very precise jump up to R, trying to go as close as possible. And this is a very efficient combination, but it hinges on getting a great turnaround in this checkpoint with a lot of speed, jumping past the house and just barely making it to this block with speed. And now you're doing the other somewhat forced string of checkpoints, which is MHIC. And I get over the grass here, do a full speed turn towards C, and then the route ends on checkpoint B, where you drive to the finish. And at the finish, there's a trick where if you hit the well, you can pitch the nose down and gain a bit of time. So this was a 1:41.3, and this run actually overtook Germany on the leaderboard. It beat Lars, which meant that we were now in the top 3, only behind Belgium and Slovakia. So you can see how, even though it's possible we have the same route, it's a lot of psychology going on. Like, oh, does this player who's known for these shortcut things have something crazy? Did he just drive a good run? You don't know if they're 100th ahead of you or several seconds, right? So after this run, I felt it's very unlikely I'm going to be able to improve by much if I keep grinding this throughout the week. Let's go back and see if we missed any big checkpoint connections. So back to the drawing board I went, looking for increasingly absurd checkpoint combinations, things that I hadn't tried initially because I had dismissed them as being unlikely to happen in a run, but now, you know what, screw it, let's try it anyway. And one of them that I found and saw was possible was going from K to E with a tree bounce. You would gather a bit of extra speed in the start and then afterwards crash into the backmost branch of the tree, and you could just barely bounce on the wall and reach checkpoint E the other way. This meant that you can from there get a very fast path to either checkpoint G or K, or better yet, perhaps both, as it was possible to turn around on G and reach checkpoint F and a finish. Both very far-fetched ideas, but things we had to consider because Reso was on top for a while, but with only 2 or 3 days left, Germany suddenly entered top 3 and held all 3 spots themselves. And this caused a little bit of a frenzy. We had to do something to get in the way of this and try to find the route that they had. So this is where I sent Reso a message and asked him if he wanted to work together to try to beat Germany. And he obliged. We shared strats. And what we found out is that Reso had actually driven one of the routes that we discovered initially. Reso's time was a 1:40.5 driven with route 1, except Reso had driven it basically perfectly. And when we thought about it, how quickly his time got beaten by Germany, how at one point Giuliano ended his live stream and set the world record 15 minutes later, and how Schmanuel in the course of a couple of hours improved the world record 3 times, we figured it just had to be something else they were doing. Me and Reso, we sat one day for about 10 hours total looking at all different combinations. We did find a couple of new time savers, like this bridge hit from Reso where it made the combination T to Q faster, where you could roof hit and gain about 0.6. We were at the bottom of the bag and there wasn't really anything left to try, so we made our alliance stronger. In an attempt to get our own scores better and their scores better, we reached out to Team Poland for a collab. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but Poland actually had one of the cleverest minds in the entire event on their side, Isfu. He had made a tool called the Trackmania Pathfinding tool. But that wasn't really the key that unlocked the puzzle. You see, we had actually missed a checkpoint. We had missed a combination, both me and Reso, and what we had missed, which Poland had found, was a very precise jump from K to G. Take a look at this clip from Corny. This is something that, of course, we had seen you barely could do, but we hadn't seen that you could land with full speed at the checkpoint. We had thought that if you do this combination, you're going to be so slow for the rest of whatever route you're doing that it's not going to be worth it. But if you got perfect speed up the hill jumped and landed a bit sideways, and carried that speed onto the roof and steered left at the correct time, you could land cleanly at G and carry speed and go to A and so on. And that ended up being the initial start you needed for the best route. Poland had already been using this route for a few days, and their best time with it was by Corny, who drove a 1:41 with it. I decided to give driving it a shot, and I actually very quickly realized it had to be faster because the route was just a shuffle of the first couple of checkpoints from Route 6. The rest after you reach checkpoint O is completely identical. And when I reached checkpoint O on one of my first runs, it was already about 0.6 faster than my really clean run that I had earlier. And there was a lot more to gain, you could even get the clean jump, so we didn't know if we could beat Germany, but at the very least I could improve by about 2 seconds. After I started grinding the route, it didn't take me long until I got my first personal best of 1:40.4, which crucially passed Giuliano, meaning we had passed one of the Germans in pace. And then a little bit later in the day, I improved again down to a 1:40.3, and this run passed Lars as well, meaning 2 of the Germans had now been overtaken by our new route. However, Schmaniel up front seemed really fast, and we did not know how low he had pushed the route. Germany had had their best route for at least 2 days before our alliance did, and so it was not just a question of if we had the best route, but if we could catch up to the times they'd been able to grind with it. Reiso picked up the route very quickly himself, and it didn't take him long to bring it down to 1:39. And even 1:39 low. But when Reiso finally reached 1:38.9, he was in disbelief that this wasn't first place. He was driving a really clean run of the route, and somehow Schmaniel's record was still ahead. Something strange was going on at the top there, and it was getting increasingly difficult to climb any spots. Reiso, however, went back to the drawing board and found a couple of small optimizations that he thought would make the difference. He found out that in the middle, he could do this wood flick through checkpoint F at full speed if he had a slightly different setup, and that would gain time because you could then jump and land into an auto slide through checkpoint E. And then also later on in the map, he found out that you could just go straight onto checkpoint H instead of doing a ramp tilt, which we used to do, and that this would give him an equal setup for the next part, but faster and more consistent. We also looked at a lot of things in the ending and found out that wall banging was faster if you did it in a good way. It was very important to have the car sideways enough when you hit the wall so that it didn't get any slowdowns. With all these tricks, I was hunting, Reiso was hunting, and we had to just hope that our route was it. We didn't have enough time to change. It was about 1 day left, and we just went full send. Nice. With less than 24 hours left in the event, I managed to improve my time to 1:39.39. Still behind Reiso and Schmaniel, but for now securing a temporary 3rd place. Germany were also trying to fight back, and France, apparently out of nowhere, also were rapidly improving their scores, as it seemed either they had the best route and just not driven it until the last day, or stumbled upon it just in the nick of time. On the last day of the event, Rezo was going full grind mode. He really wanted to get the record. He'd been playing for it all week, and he finally got this run. A 138.529, getting everything pretty much clean and setting a new world record on the map. You have no idea the relief we felt when we saw the number 1 pop up for Rezo, because we thought there could still be several seconds to go, but when Rezo improved his personal best by 0.4 and he got the world record, we knew we not only had the route, but that also Rezo had just driven a really strong time with it. And as the time was ticking, there was only a few hours left for Germany to try to respond and reclaim it. In the last stretch, many people improved. I dropped from 3rd place all the way down to 6th in the final hours. I was myself trying to improve and had some last chances, but I flopped them. And as the leaderboards closed at 9, it was time to take a look at what times people had and what strategies they used. And this is my live reactions to everything that happened. And it was pure cinema. So here we go. My time was a 1:39.39 and 1:38.52, 53, and 58. Oh my god. Now guys, let's check out the German route with Schmaniel, Braden, and Rezo. This is the top 3, only 500ths apart after a week of grinding, and Rezo and Schmaniel 6,000 between gold medal and silver. Unbelievable. Rezo's start was really good in his run. He kept sending me splits on Discord, like being on pace for 137, and his best copium timer was in the 137s. So you can see the no airtime. Look at the speed they get from this. They're faster all the way up to here, and they gain a bit towards Bren. Bren is French, technically always been French national, but living in Australia. So yeah, Bren playing for Team France. Schmaniel jumping later. Does he do the other turnaround? Yes, he does do the same one as me, which I think is better. But he did it in a very clean way too with the bug slide. Rezo though, hot on his heels. Into the turnaround here. Oh, nice second gear by both. Does Schmaniel do that? Oh, he doesn't do the... Yeah, he did a different drop-down strategy. We'll have low speed here, guys, for the end with his nose. Wait, it's quite fast. Wallbang! Is it gonna be a snipe? Well, we know, but... No way, bro. But we knew this. Was this lack of critical information? Look, I'll show you guys. This is one of the... We found this very early on. Didn't know. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah, you can get a nose down by crashing into the well, which dips the nose. It's like diving in for a finish while you're sprinting, you know? Oh my, that is the difference? Wow, that's unbelievable. And so that is how the Pathfinding event ended, with a well-hit nose down into the finish, snipe by Rezo, 6,000ths of a second faster than Smaniel and Germany, who unfortunately for them didn't have the strategy, and 3rd place for Bren with the same route, really clean driving, and if it weren't for one crash, likely would have had the gold medal. I myself got 6th place. There was a 4th place for Norway by Lavon, and also Kvik with a good time in 7th, I believe. So overall, we ended up scoring a ton of points for Team Norway in this event. It would have been fun to take home a medal, but you can't always get what you want. I tried my best, set some good records, but ultimately wasn't fast enough for that. This has been such a blast. Huge shout out to the team that hosts Trackmania games. I hope you guys found this fun to watch, and definitely shows the potential of pathfinding events in the future. Maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll do a puzzle competition or a pathfinding competition of some kind myself. Hope you guys enjoyed watching, and have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye-bye. See you. Auf Wiedersehen. Later. Bonsoir.